At this time, we have a presentation from our planner, Susan Gruhl, and Steve Warner, planning board attorney. So if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the microphone. Or if you want to come around to the table.
The council table.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, how are you?
Good, how about you?
Great, thanks.
Just for the record, introduce yourselves, although we all know obviously who you both are, the public may not.
Yes, this is Steve Warner. See whether we can.
Steve Warner, Planning Board Attorney for the Township.
And Susan Gruhl, conflict planner for the township.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You don't need to be sworn after this.
Okay, all right.
We're just presenting, the hearing's already taken place.
I know, I just wanted to make sure. As you recall, and I'll just kind of briefly go over where we were in January. Hi, Kathy. In January of this year, this committee requested that the planning board investigate certain properties. There were 5 properties, Kemble, and several of the parcels across Mount Kemble Avenue. The planning board, by process, the planning board received the resolution and directed us to prepare a study of the area to determine whether the area, the parcels meet the statutory criteria to be designated either an area in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation. The planning board
That would be July.
in July, that's what I was going to say. The planning board then received the report and held a public hearing, which is part of the process on that. And they recommended back to this committee that that certain properties be designated area in need of redevelopment and the other properties be designated an area in need of rehabilitation. So we are now at the point where this entity, as the governing body, can take action to designate by resolution whatever, take that into account. And just for purposes of, I know all of you have a copy of our May 2016 report. In summary, site number 1, which is block 5506, lot 25, basically the Atlantic Health site. We determined that the area of the site meets criteria D and E because of its obsolete condition, certainly in terms of the utility annex and the useful life of much of its facility, as well as E because of the township, the municipal boundary line cutting very arbitrarily through that portion of the site. And that goes to conditions of title or other property characteristics, ownership characteristics that could affect the area. And Morris Township and Morristown have very disparate zoning and land use considerations for that particular site. In terms of the other properties, which is block 5605, lot 5, 6, 7, and 8, those are parcels and homes across the street, as well as the bargain box. Based upon our assessment, we determined it didn't meet the criteria to be designated an area in need of redevelopment, but it did meet the criteria to be designated an area in need of rehabilitation. All of the structures are over 50 years old, and so in our report, we recommended that, and the planning board did agree with that assessment and recommends back to this committee that it be designated an area in need of redevelopment and rehab, those two discrete designations. That's basically a summary.
We would then need a redevelopment plan should the committee accept the proposal. Is that correct?
That's the next step. And just to remind everybody that your initial resolution determined that this area should be studied as a non-condemnation redevelopment area if it met the criteria. So I just note that for purposes of the record.
And Mr. Warner and yourself would have a pretty heavy hand in helping articulate this proposed plan, I assume.
The heavier hand might be Ms. Gruel's, but my hand will certainly help.
By the way, when I asked you to identify yourself, I meant primarily by title. I think we can obviously figure out who was who.
Oh, I was just
But,
Yes. The next step for the committee, if it were to approve by way of resolution, the acceptance of the designations of the planning board, rehabilitation as to lot 25, redevelopment as to lot 25, rehabilitation as to lots 5 through 8, then it would be the preparation of the plan, which would then be
Right.
for the planning board to review with respect to master plan consistency.
And it really statutorily, it is the option of this body to determine who prepares actually the plan. Whether you ask a draft, you can ask the planning board, or you can, one way or the other, both bodies get it, both boards, whether by referral or adoption, obviously. So that's a
Okay,
who starts the process.
sure.
So we begin if the township committee accepts the planning board recommendation. That's step one. And then step two is we somehow communicate to the planning board the manner in which the redevelopment plan and the ultimate ordinance adopting it will come into being.
Yes.
So, yeah, before we open up the resolution, first of all, I'm going to open it up to the dais here for questions or comments, and then I will also open it up to the public if they have any question or comment. So, yes, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, a point of order and then a question. Since Mr. Mancuso and I sit on the planning board, and we've obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but we did support that this designation be accepted. Is there any conflict with us now?
No.
Oh, okay, so we're just changing hats and reaffirming what we already
You have no
decided
personal interest in this.
of the planning board. No,
As a member
absolutely
of the
not.
township committee.
Okay, and I know, as you pointed out, Ms. Burrow, because of the adjacency with Morristown, is there any involvement or any update with regard to what Morristown is doing? Because, you know, the borderline doesn't run of the buildings, so are you involved or know of any news with regard to Morristown study?
Maybe your
Or maybe
administrator
Tim,
can give an
you know.
update.
We're working with trying to get Morristown to put together discussions as to moving this process forward, along with, they need to also do the same as we have done for the designation, so that, as you know, it'll be a joint project and how that's going to be handled. But that will be coming in the near future, hopefully, with Morristown.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions, first of all, from the dais up here? No? At this point, before we open up the resolution for a motion, is there any comment or question that anyone from the public would have? No? Okay, seeing none, do I hear a motion on the resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I would move resolution number 168-16 for adoption by this board.
Thank you. Second?
I will second that.
Your roll call?
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso?
Yes.
Mr. Nunn?
Yes.
Mr. Sisler?
Yes.
Mayor Guthrie?
Yes.
Mayor, with, just so we have transparency, I wonder if there's any thought that the committee has to sending a request to the planning board that it, through the offices of its professionals here this evening, take a lead in helping design the redevelopment plan.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Anybody here disagree? Okay.
Okay, so then maybe Kathleen could be requested, or Mr. Quinn write a letter to the planning board in furtherance of that.
Okay.
Just so we close the circle.
Great idea, thank you.